Welcome to an uplifting dialogue. Stories about how the arts powerfully transform life with Susan Brender. This is V for Vitality.
This show has been made possible by the support of Plantronics, an endpoint company celebrating 50 years of innovation. I'm Susan Brender, and this is V for Vitality. I'm speaking with Lucie Arnaz. She's not just Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's daughter. She's a wife, a mother, a sister, and just an inspiration for vitality. Her extremely diversified career has spanned over 40 years. She's an actor, a producer, singer, director, and an inspirational speaking touring the country talking about surviving success. I think a wonderful and powerful speech that gives audiences an inside look into balancing a family and career is what Lucie is about. So I would like to welcome Lucie Arnaz to our show, V for Vitality. Hello, Lucie.
Hi, that was a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a deserving one, and I want to say, Lucie, that you are, yes, an inspiration to people because I've heard from many that when you get on stage, all of a sudden they say, now we get it. We get that there were parents that were vital beyond belief, but here is a daughter who has, if not equal vitality, maybe even more. Is there something to that, Lucie? More?
Wow, I don't think that's something that I can answer or should. It's flattering. Thank you. I hope there's more. I mean, God, yeah. That would be really sad if it wasn't. You know, get up on stage
and there you go.
Sum total of your parents. That would, that doesn't mean you have a life of your own at all. So, I'm glad that if people are saying that, then I'm glad they get it, and I'm glad it's there.
Lucie, you often speak about your parents, and rightfully so. They are revolutionaries. They are icons of a period where what they did was unique. And what made it unique was that they were able to integrate both music, comedy, great acting, dancing, all of the arts into one show that even today, young people can identify with. What was it about them that they had this skill, this craft, this ability to do that and make it happen so successfully?
My God only knows. It's a gift from God. How do I know how they got it? I have no clue. It's there.
So you have it. You must have some sense of where it's happened for you, where it's come from. I know that we don't always understand it, but does it have something to do with your family?
Well, I'm sure everything that we do in life has something to do with our family. My God, don't you think? What you do, does it have anything to do with your family or anything that you learned growing up or any sort of osmosis or joy or passion or even running from something in your family? I mean, I think everybody is influenced by the soil in which they are cultivated, clearly, yeah.
Yeah, so let's begin with the whole idea that you were born into this family that had all of this wonder about them. They were able to create the most amazing things, and yet you spent 12 years of your life making a decision that you as an entertainer needed to pay attention to your children. Can you tell the audience about what happened during that period of time?
Well, I just decided that I needed to focus much more on being with my children, not just being home, but being present for them, really listening. And it's easy when you're both in this business. My husband is an actor as well, and we were fortunate. We were working actors, so we were in and out, and kids traveled with us a lot, and we had nannies and live-in people, and I was home, to my estimation, a hell of a lot more than my folks were able to be with us, and yet it still really wasn't enough, and we knew that because the kids were acting out emotionally, and people were, there were signs. And so we had to change our life a lot and make sure that we were there for them in a different kind of way so that they felt worthy of the love. A lot of people grow up feeling unworthy of love because of something that happened to them when they were younger, and I didn't want that to happen to my kids. So we made a pact that I would stay home if Larry was working, or he would stay home if I was working, and there would be one, blood relative with our kids at all times. And it really did help tremendously once we started doing that. Things changed, things got better. And it was a sacrifice just to a certain extent between us, career-wise, but it was a good thing for the kids. They're still suffering a little bit from that non-bonding thing that happens when you're too busy working to take, the proper care of your family. But it is what it is, and they got a lot of good, strength from it too, probably, even though they had to get it the hard way. You never know.
You perform a song in your current show that demystifies your family. And this song talks about why there's an IE at the end of your name and various other things. Describe to our audience, and I would love to hear a couple of lines, frankly, of that song. Did you write it, and why did you put it in your show?
Oh, it's just a cute little silly-ass song. It's a parody on Liza with a Z, and I did it because there's a lot of things that I'm always responding to, question and answer wise, and I thought maybe it would be funny to stick them all in a little musical crib sheet and make a joke out of it and answer a lot of questions all at once and set the record straight on a couple of things. Some of it being my name, like Liza always had trouble have people spelling her name, and people spell my name wrong constantly because it's Lucie, not Y, and Arnaz. It isn't easy. I wasn't on I Love Lucy. Desi wasn't Little Ricky. We just use a lot of fun with things like that so I can answer it all in a hurry. It's just silly.
Lucie, you now are very, very involved in performing all over the country. And you are, it looks like, and it sounds like, and what I've heard is that you're having a blast. Is it true?
I love what I do. I love my show. I love making music. I've been doing this concerts, cabaret, concerts, symphonies, anything that has to do with a live orchestra, be it a 60-piece orchestra or just a piano and everything in between. Been doing that now about 23 years in and out of doing Broadway shows and a movie or a TV thing here and there. But it's really where I make my living. And the new CD, the Latin Roots CD, was thrilling. And we're out promoting that now and doing a sort of a Latin-based show with a lot of that great salsa and mambo, samba. It's kind of the music I grew up with, too, music of the 30s and the 40s and the 60s. Yeah, I love what I do. I don't do as much dancing as I used to because I travel by myself now. I don't travel with 2 or 3 dancers. I do a show that's Lucie. It's just me. And it's easier to book. It's easier to take around the country. It's not as expensive for people to pay for. And these days, people are always wanting something that's a little less expensive because people are cutting back, and if you want to continue to work, you have to pay attention to the business side of this and provide a show that people can afford to have.
Yes, that's clearly something that a lot of entertainers are dealing with. But I want to talk about the Latin Roots and Babalu and the show that you are involved in and that people, again, have given you rave reviews on. So let's talk about how that all started.
Ever since I made my first CD called Just in Time with Concord Jazz Records, I was already filtering a lot more Latin-type sounds into my show. Not always Spanish-speaking songs, but with a Latin flavor, Latin beat, because it's just nothing better. And, yes, it is the music I grew up with to a certain extent with my father in the Desi Arnaz Orchestra, and I believe that the reason I have sort of ventured off into mostly music rather than producing or things like that as much, I've always found myself on a musical stage, came from my father's side of the family, and so I always want to sort of go back there and get back to the rhythm of my soul. And so I had always had this idea since like 1993 that I would put together a CD called Latin Roots, but life gets in the way. I went over to London and I did a big new Cameron Mackintosh musical, and then I came back and my kids were in college. There's always something. But a couple years ago, after I had given all of my father's musical arrangements to the Desi Arnaz Orchestra to the Library of Congress, the people at the 92nd Street Y Lyric and Lyricists Association asked if I would be interested in tributing the Latin music craze in this country, but as seen through just the music of the Desi Arnaz Orchestra, since they knew that these orchestrations existed at the Library of Congress. And that was a fantastic opportunity, A, to hear the music again, my father's orchestrations again, and to put it with the same size band they were written for, and to hear it live once more, thrilling. And I got into producing that show. It took 8 months. And so while I was doing that, I said, now's the chance. Now's the time to do that Latin Roots CD, and it's going to drive me crazy because how can I produce this show and produce an album at the same time? But I knew I had to, and I just did. So we produced them at the same time, called it Latin Roots like I always wanted to. It came out the week that we did the show, which we ended up calling Babalu. And we did the Babalu show a couple times. We did it in New York to sold-out audiences at the Y for 5 performances. We went down to Miami in that July and did it again, 5 performances at the beautiful Adrian Arsh Center in Miami. And then just this last October, we did it for one night only at the Library of Congress and had it filmed for posterity, which was thrilling. But I wanted to create a show that wasn't as expensive, didn't have as many people to have to worry about their schedules and their calendars, because it was Raul Esparza, it was my brother, it was Valerie Pettiford, it was me. I said, I can't book that show because they're all busy doing other things, and my brother doesn't really like to travel that much. So I now have a show which is a hybrid of both, and it's called Latin Roots. And it is some of my father's music and some of the music from my CD, which has also got some of my father's music on it. And there's 2 versions. There's a smaller orchestra version. There's 4 pieces. And then there's the one that we do with 12 pieces and an intermission and 2 acts and the whole thing. And that's thrilling to me to finally get to have it up on its feet again. And we're going to be doing it probably in Palm Springs. We did it in Miami at the University of Miami last year, and just getting started with the big Latin Roots show. And I just closed at Feinstein's in New York with the smaller version of the show. And I think those are probably the reviews you were talking about, which they were very nice, and I was very happy about that.
Yes, indeed they were. And that kind of question, I have to question that whole notion of what it is about the Latin craze. You use that expression, Latin craze, and there certainly is a Latin craze in this country.
Latin music craze in the country that started in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and my father did have something to do with it, because he, first of all, was the guy who brought La Conga into the United States, was the first person to popularize that dance. They ended up naming 2 clubs after him, the La Conga Club in Miami and La Conga Club in New York. But more than that, once he got onto I Love Lucy and he brought his band with him, then that music was being filtered into people's living rooms every single week. And that was the 50s, when that kind of music was a little strange to people still. You know, they weren't familiar with anything like that. It was a little bit of rock and roll and the standards and Broadway and stuff. And suddenly there's Desi Arnaz playing this Latin Cuban band leader singing these uniquely different songs, and the whole of America got a taste for what that felt like in a very friendly way, and I think that had a lot to do with the popularity later on.
So you attribute some of the success of Latin music and the sustainability of Latin music to the fact that there was a critical mass being exposed to it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's when the doors opened, and then the Gloria Estefans and the Julio Iglesias and all those people that were going to come later on, they've been writing us for years saying that, so I can only assume that it's true.
And so what about our young people today, and the fact that they're getting into music like rap and to hip-hop and things of that nature, which don't always give a very positive view of the world? Does Latin music give a very positive view of the world as you see it?
No, it's just a rhythm. I mean, Latin music is simply a rhythm. You can put it to any song anywhere. You can put it to the most depressing song in the world or the happiest song in the world. It's simply a rhythm that you use. And Latin music is just like American music. It's about all kinds of things. And there are Latin rap artists, and, you know, I think that rap and hip-hoppy type stuff is very representative of the world we live in today. It doesn't always give a very happy picture, but the world isn't always a very happy place. I mean, the songs that were written right after World War II were written because people had been so depressed for so long, and they were so sad, and they'd lost so much, even though we won a war. A lot of the songs that came out of that were try to get happy songs, because that was the need at the time. Right now, the young people are like great poets. Rap songs, poets are kind of a dying breed. I don't think people talk about poetry or poetry books much anymore. I've never even heard someone mention it at a party or on a bestseller list. I mean, I don't know. There's still a section somewhere in Barnes & Noble, but the poets of today are the rap artists. They're the ones who tell us what's going on. And I'm not nuts about the music myself. I like stuff with more melody and But when I listen, I really appreciate what they're trying to do. It just is very representative of the culture, and I think people should listen to it, because if you don't know what the young people are thinking or what they're afraid of, you don't know how to address it, you know?
That's a pretty interesting statement, because it sounds like you have how many children?
5.
Okay, with 5 children, you've done a lot of learning and probably a lot of listening and probably also a lot of responding. But the fact of the matter is, what have you learned from your children with regard to what they're thinking today about life? And does music play a role in their expressing, or the arts in any way play a role in expressing how they feel?
Absolutely. All of my kids are artists. There isn't a lawyer or a doctor or a cubicle worker in the bunch. As a matter of fact, my oldest son, Larry's first son, he's my stepson, but I consider him my son. Nick he started out as a rap track artist, and he is a music producer, and that's what he does. He works with these guys 24/7, so I'm very familiar with who they are and what they do. And Ben also had a band for a while, but he's more of the graphic artist type guy. He works behind the scenes. My son Joe is a phenomenal guitarist and creates beautiful music. He writes great songs. He's produced 2 of his own CDs so far, and he's only 29 years old. He just started a couple of years ago, and he's great. And his music it's very of the moment. He writes about how he feels and what's going on in the world, and it moves me tremendously. And it has pretty melodies too, but it's very, very poetic and very contemporary. And my daughter was an actress, got her musical theater degree, and went in and did plays and did movies and put her own nightclub back together, and now is considering going another direction entirely. She's a certified yoga instructor, and she works with small children, and she wants to do something that will change and benefit the world. She's not sure which thing to stick with, but she knows it isn't just some, dumb actress thing, keep going to auditions and never knowing what your next job is going to be. She wants to do something that means more, If she could have been black, she would have been Oprah. She would have liked to have been born Oprah.
There you go.
So they're all involved in what's going on in the world,
Yes.
And Simon, my oldest son, Simon, is a fantastic artist. He's a painter, and he paints what's going on in the world and what's going on in his head and what his fears are. And it's a fantastic outlet to use your music, your paint, your painting. My daughter's a wonderful writer, and so they've used all these artistic outlets to express themselves, and I couldn't be more proud of that.
That's fantastic, and I'm interested in understanding whether Vitality is part of that whole arts community that you're raising, that there's a vitality in them and in yourself and in Larry, your husband, that may be nurtured by the fact that all of you maybe have genes that reflect the idea that you can do something good with your art and the creativeness that you have.
Yeah, our genes are an amazing subject to study because they can be many things. They can you can say blame it on the genes, as they say, in one way or another, because it can create alcoholism or fantastic artistry. You get the good with the bad when you start looking at your genes pool. It's up to the child to decide how to filter it and use what works and doesn't poison,
Have you been the influence behind making the positive side of your family work so well? Is it you and Larry? How?
Oh, I have no idea. No, I couldn't possibly say that. I mean, I think my kids, if they're wise, if they survive this world at all, it'll be because they were smart enough to keep on trucking even when we made mistakes. I don't know. If we've done anything right, it's that they see us continue to work on ourselves and keep asking questions and figure out how to do it better. But I don't think I would want to even say that I'm the reason that they have artistic expression, or they're just amazing kids. They were born with curious brains, and they're not afraid to say why, and they're not afraid to talk back. And, in this country, you have to be both of those things.
You also have been questioned about choices that you've made, and you said life is about choices. I'd like to understand more about that. Life is about choices.
Well, I think, of course, life is all about, that's all it's about is choices. I mean, every single minute of every single day, every single moment of every day, that's all we're doing is making choices. And you're going to make choices based on what, Where are you going to make your choice based from? Are you going to make it from love? Are you going to make it from fear? Are you going to make intelligent choices? Are you going to make, you know what I mean? It's all, whether it's what to eat, what to put in your coffee, what to say, where to go, whether to raise your voice or speak softly. Every minute, every second of my life, I'm making a choice. And it decides where you go with your life, the choices that we make.
And some of the choices that you've made are to get involved in writing your own music, and creating, if you will, your own poetry. I'd like to hear again and tell our audience about some of the music that you're writing and how you come up with the themes for that music.
I don't write that much of it. I appreciate you saying that. It just comes out from time to time. There's a couple of songs on various CDs that I've done that I've written. The one on the first CD was a song that I wrote. It ended up a nice jazz revenge tune after a love affair went wrong, and instead of crying in my soup, I wrote a funny song about it. Those are the most fun. I wrote a lot of songs like that growing up. But these days, it just depends. The last song I wrote was a song with my son for the Latin Roots CD, with a beautiful Latin melody and rhythm that I really liked that he wrote, but he didn't have a lyric. And I don't know, he usually writes great lyrics, but he said, I don't know, Mom, I'm not sure what this one is really about. Why don't you get somebody else to write a lyric? And I said, well, what were you thinking when you wrote it? You had to come up with something through your brain or you wouldn't have had this incredible melody. He said, I don't know, I was thinking about Grandpa, Desi, and if he even knows I'm a guitarist, and, I wish he was still around because I'd like to ask him about the music business and where do people go when they die anyway? And, is he watching me? That kind of thing. And I thought, there's a good song. And I wrote The Music in Your Heart. I wrote the lyrics to The Music in Your Heart and became the song that's on the Latin Roots CD, which I think is one of the best songs on the CD right now because it came out as something very valid and a real question that Joe was asking, and it became my voice and my grandfather's voice hoping to answer Joe's questions about all that.
Yeah. And so, again, here your children seem to be so grounded, and when I listen to you speak, you're extremely grounded after growing up in a world that might have been a bit of a fantasy world, no?
Oh, I wouldn't call it a fantasy world. That'd be my last, it was lots of things. People would like to think it's a fantasy world. That's probably why people get into this business, because they think it's going to be all fantasy and fabulous and autographs and sunglasses, and it's really hard work. And growing up was rough because I had two working parents. And I don't know, I'm grounded because I work really, really hard to get grounded. I mean, I have not given up on myself. I don't accept the negativity that may have come with this particular channel I had to swim through. I didn't go through the same thing that my brother went through. He had to go through a drugs and alcohol lifetime. I never went that direction. But there are other personality things you got to work with that have come from low self-esteem that develops when you're involved in this crazy-ass business. I love the business. I love entertaining people, but there's certain elements of celebrity that can be very disintegrating, to relationships. And I work hard at it. That's all I can say. I'm not done yet. I ain't cooked.
That's a great way to put it. So I know that you're involved in something called the Unity Church, which
yes.
You've indicated is a spiritual church. First of all,
yeah.
What drove you to become involved in the Unity Church? Are you a religious person?
Nothing at all. It must have been ordained in the skies because I was simply putting together a nightclub act that I was going to be doing at the Ridgefield Playhouse in Connecticut, and I had a friend named David Friedman who writes amazing songs, and he and his partner live in Connecticut. And I said to David, for this show, I want to close the show with your song, Help Is On the Way, which is one of the most beautiful songs ever written. And I said, would you do me the great honor of coming up on the stage that night and playing the song for us? And he said, I'd be delighted. Oh, my God, that'd be fantastic. So great. So we were getting ready to put this song into the show, and his partner, Sean, was actually going to light my show because he's a preacher at the Unity Church in Norwalk now, but for 20 years he was a lighting designer all over New York. And I said, Sean, can you light the show? He went, sure, I'll light the show. It's great. So he was lighting the show, and David said, listen, why don't you come down to Sean's church on Sunday, and I'll play this song, and you can sing it, and we'll work it into the sermon somehow, and then you can get a chance at singing it once before you do it in your show. And I went, sing at a church? Honey, I don't go to church. And he went, well, it's not exactly church like you think of it. It's a non-denominational, any religion can come there. It's a spiritual way of thinking, and it's above a Ford dealership. How churchy could it be, And I said, well, all right, fine. Let's do a good rehearsal. So I went down there to sing Help Is on the Way with David and just get up in the middle of this small congregation, 65 people or something. But before I sang, I had to listen to Sean do his shtick, and I was blown away. I was laughing, and I was crying my eyes out, and then I had to get up and sing. I was like, I had no idea I was going to be so moved by this. And Sean was really good. He was really funny, and I guess all my life I had been missing some spirituality, not religion. We had some religion growing up, but that's a whole other thing. And that's a lot of rules and regulations and the blame, shame, sin, whole number game, hell, I don't know. Ugh. And I turned away from that many, many years ago. After I raised all my kids Catholic and made sure they went through and got their first communion and all that. And then we were all so disenchanted with the Catholic Church and all of their belief systems and all that stuff that I know what to do, so we just did nothing for a long time. But this suddenly I went, wow, you know what? I might come back here. And I showed up again a couple weeks later and a couple weeks later and then the next week, and I just felt really good every time I went there, and I got great tools. I got great spiritual tools to take away with me and to use on an everyday basis. It really, things I could actually use that help my life, help me make choices, like we're talking about choices, help me make better choices. And I thought, okay, this is a good place. I like this place. And so we've been kind of involved. And then I got slowly but surely, Larry got involved too, because he saw changes happening in our house. And it's like, you don't have to proselytize to people. You just have to walk the walk. And then people go, wow, how come you changed? What's wrong? What's different? And I think we did. We think we did change quite a lot. And so, yeah, I love Unity. I think it's great. I go to the one in Norwalk. I go to the one in New York when I can. Even in Hawaii, when we were over in Hawaii for a month, we found the Unity Church there. And it's a great way to live.
What do you think you're here for on this earth? What do you, here you are involved in the church, and of course, as you've indicated, it's not necessarily religious.
Yeah, I'm involved in a group of people who want to know God better and want to understand what's it all about, Alfie, that we're here to figure out how to love, period. That's what I'm here to do.
That's pretty special. And speaking of laughter, I think that you have a pretty funny side to you, and how much do you cherish the whole notion of laughing and creating humor so that people can enjoy not only your singing and your acting, but also your humor? Is that important to you?
Well, it's important to me that people have humor in their lives, whether it's my humor or somebody else's humor. For a long time, I was going around the country doing some fun panel discussion things, which I called LOL, Legacy of Laughter seminars. The power of laughter and the healing power of love and laughter together was sponsored by the Lucille Desi Arnaz Center in Jamestown. I wanted to create something for them that really talked to the mission of the Lucie Desi Center, not just the fact that we were, restoring some of the sets from I Love Lucy and having a museum of my mother and father's artifacts. There has to be something more. What's that place for? And I decided that, my brother and I really wanted to talk about the legacy of love and laughter. And so I would literally go around the country and talk to people about why laughter is important. And I would have lawyers on the panel, nuns, doctors, comedians, comedy writers, actors, prison wardens, whoever, and say, how does humor help your life? Talk to me about what's important about humor in your life. And especially people who work in hospitals, and talk about, oh, my God, if it wasn't for, just the smile you bring on people's faces, the clowns, the Ronald McDonald people that come in and cheer up the kids. Norman Cousins wrote a whole book about when they diagnosed him with terminal cancer, and he said, no, I don't think so. And he went home, and he started watching funny videos, Three Stooges, I Love Lucy, Dick Van Dyke, Charlie Chaplin, and literally laughed himself well. So then doctors started to study laughter. And is it true laughter is the best medicine? Well, now you can go online and you can look it up. All the things that actually happen physiologically with your body when you laugh hard, that more oxygen goes to your brain, your killer T cells triple, they kill off all the bad bacteria. It brings enormous blood into your veins. You get color in your face, you live long. I mean, there are real medical reasons why laughing is actually life-saving. So, yeah, laughter is really important.
Do you watch the Lucie shows and laugh?
I do. I certainly do. I love comedies. I love that show. I love watching Friends. I think Friends is a hysterical show. I love, I have a long list of funny comedies that I turn to when I need a good laugh. Yeah, but absolutely, I absolutely do.
And what about in marriage? Do you and Larry laugh together?
Constantly. The harder, the better, and at the most bizarre times, the better.
Yes, and is that part of the success of your 31 years of marriage?
Absolutely. Yeah, that and going back into the room and saying, I'm sorry, I was a jackass. It wasn't your fault. I'm an idiot. We have to take turns doing that.
So you are an idiot sometimes?
Of course I am. Absolutely. Aren't you?
Lucie Arnaz is an idiot?
Yes, you say idiotic things that you don't mean because you're angry and you're just having a bad day and you take it out on somebody else. And in my house, there wouldn't be the person that comes back in after that and goes, what the heck was that all about? I'm sorry, didn't mean it, please forgive me. With the old days, you were allowed to say whatever crazy-ass thing you want and then just hold a grudge for a couple months and then hope it goes away. We don't do that here. And we tried our kids not to do that, Hold a grudge about 10 seconds.
So, okay, hold a grudge and get it out. Have a family conversation. Have a conversation with your husband. Be honest about things. You lead a very real existence, even though you spend time on the road performing. You're out there in the world. People are clapping, applauding, standing up, and saying, wow. They know that you're the daughter of two of the most famous people in the world. So again, I'm getting back to that whole notion. How is it possible, after leading the life that you have with folks who were that famous, how is it that Lucie is this grounded?
Well, in a nutshell, I didn't want to have that life. I wanted a better life. So I work hard at trying to do what works better.
You have found that music and acting are really your forte, and that is really where your vitality comes from. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes and no. That's what I've been doing for the last 40-some years, but I've been filtering in writing and producing and directing, and now I'm leaning towards that, too. I mean, I still love my music, but I've got other things that I'm working on now. I want to move more towards the writing area, and I love that, and I think I'm a pretty good writer, so you might see some of that in the next few years.
So what's next, though?
I have no clue. I got to drive Larry to the airport.
Okay.
That's all I know. And I have a show tonight, and that's I know that's next. And when my shows are done, I have more shows, and I go back to Connecticut, and then I have some time off, and then I have more shows, and then I get time off, and life goes on like that.
If people want to ask you any questions, how do they reach Lucie Arnaz?
I have a terrific website, plain old www.luciearnaz.com, LucieArnaz.com, and it's real navigation friendly, and there's links and there's contact, and on the Contact Lucie, you can just send an email and it goes directly to our office. I get them all.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Lucie Arnaz, for being on V for Vitality. It's been absolutely a pleasure.
Thanks, Susan. And I appreciate all your talk about the Latin Roots CD because I'm happy it's out there and it's a nice CD full of great music.
Venga aquí, siéntete, calme su mente, and don't be afraid. Escúchame, estoy siempre aquí, la voz dentro de su corazón. I'm the air you breathe in, the sound of the wind, and the leaf that flutters by. Catch a wave in the sea, you'll be riding on me. Mira, I am the sky. When you walk in the sand, I'll be holding your hand. I am the strings of your guitar. Listen, I am the music in your heart. Hijo, mi amor, the way is clear, though the path you're on might have some sticks and stones. Just love and let go, and you'll learn what you already know, that you're never, ever on that road alone. I'm the air you breathe in, the sound of the wind, and the leaf that flutters by. Catch a wave in the sea, you'll be riding on me. Look up, I am the sky. I'm the tune in your head when you're lying in bed. I am the strings of your guitar. Don't forget, I am the music in your heart. Encuéntrame. I am the air you breathe in. I am the sky. Trust in the music. Soy la música. Escuche. Find me. In the music of your
This program was produced and edited by Lisa Giles with IVR Productions, LLC.